The 15th of June, 2016. A billionaire media mogul walks into Gameloft headquarters in Paris and fires the man who invented mobile gaming from his own company, the company he built with his bare hands. What you're about to witness is the most brutal corporate execution in gaming history. A story so shocking, so twisted, that if it were fiction, you wouldn't believe it. This man created an empire worth $2 billion. His games were played by 100 million people every month. He was the undisputed king of mobile gaming. This is the story of betrayal, greed, and the most ruthless corporate takeover in gaming history. A tale where brothers became enemies, empires crumbled, and millions of gamers watched their childhood heroes disappear. December 1999. The world was preparing for Y2K, but in a small French office, 5 brothers were about to change gaming forever. Michel Guillemot had already helped build Ubisoft into a powerhouse, but he had a vision that his brothers couldn't see. Mobile gaming would be the future. So he did what legends do. He went to war against Nokia, against Sony, against every mobile manufacturer who thought games were just toys. And for 15 years, he won. Gameloft didn't just make mobile games, they were mobile gaming. 200 million copies sold, 2 million downloads per day. They were digital gods, but every empire has its Brutus. And Michel Guillemot would come from the most unexpected place, his own industry. If you love gaming documentaries like these, or you're a fan of games in general, be sure to subscribe and smash that like button. Picture this, it's 2003. Your phone can barely send a text message. Games? They were blocks moving on a green screen. But Michel Guillemot saw something nobody else did. What if we put real games on phones? Not just Snake, but racing games, shooters, RPGs. The industry laughed. Nokia executives literally said nobody wants console games on phones. But Michel had a secret weapon, preloading. While everyone else begged for shelf space, Gameloft convinced manufacturers to put their games inside every phone. Millions of phones, millions of games, instant empire. By 2009, they weren't just successful, they were absolutely unstoppable. Asphalt made racing games cool on mobile. Modern Combat brought console-quality shooters to your pocket. Dungeon Hunter created mobile RPGs. Then came the iPhone, the App Store. And suddenly, Michel Guillemot wasn't just successful, he was prophetic. While everyone else scrambled to understand mobile gaming, Gameloft was already the master. 10 million paid downloads by 2010. They were printing money, but success makes you a target. 2012. The year everything changed. Not because of technology, not because of innovation, but because of greed. Pure greed that would poison an entire industry. Free-to-play arrived like a virus, spreading through the industry with the ruthless efficiency of a plague. But this wasn't just any virus. This was engineered, calculated, designed to exploit the very psychology that made us human. Suddenly, games weren't products you owned, they were slot machines you rented. Digital casinos masquerading as entertainment. King didn't just create Candy Crush, they weaponized boredom itself. Every failed level wasn't failure, it was an opportunity. An opportunity to extract $5 for 5 more lives. Supercell turned waiting into warfare with Clash of Clans. Your village under attack? Pay up or watch it burn. They didn't sell games, they sold anxiety. They didn't create players, they created addicts, desperate for their next digital fix. These weren't game developers anymore, they were dealers, and mobile phones were their street corners. Billions of dollars flowing from players' pockets into corporate coffers, like a digital oil pipeline. Traditional game sales, pennies, freemium revenue, liquid gold. Pay to win wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated in boardrooms across Silicon Valley. Wall Street didn't just love it, they demanded more. More manipulation, more exploitation. And Gameloft, the company that once prided itself on bringing console-quality experiences to mobile, the studio that crafted genuine adventures, complete worlds, finished products, they stood at a crossroads that would define not just their future, but their very existence. Stick to their premium roots and face extinction in an industry that no longer valued their principles, or join the gold rush and abandon everything they once stood for, everything that made them them. They chose greed. They chose survival. They chose to become the very monster they once fought against. And in doing so, they didn't just betray their fans, they betrayed themselves. The backlash was swift and brutal. Parents discovered their kids had spent hundreds on virtual gems. Gaming forums exploded with rage. Headlines screamed about predatory monetization. But the real threat wasn't angry fans, it was the competition. While Gameloft fumbled with complex monetization, new companies mastered it. Simple games, addictive mechanics, massive profits. Michel Guillemot's empire was cracking. 2015. The numbers don't lie. Monthly active users was down by 10%. Daily active users down by 17%. For the first time in Gameloft's history, they were losing. 7 studios closed. Hundreds of employees laid off. The company that once seemed invincible was dying. Their games felt old, stale. While competitors created viral sensations, Gameloft released sequels to sequels. Asphalt 8, Modern Combat 5, Dungeon Hunter 6. The same formula over and over. 2018, revenue down 13.4%. But this wasn't just a bad quarter. This was the death rattle of a dynasty. And somewhere in Paris, a media giant was watching, waiting, preparing to strike. Vincent Bolloré, remember that name. French billionaire. The man I mentioned earlier, media mogul, and the man who would destroy the Guillemot empire. October 2015, Vivendi quietly purchased 6.2% of Gameloft stock. The Guillemots weren't worried. It was just an investment, right? February 2016, 30%. The alarm bells were ringing. This wasn't investment, this was invasion. Michel Guillemot fought back. Emergency board meetings, poison pill defenses, desperate calls to allies. But Bolloré wasn't just buying stock, he was buying war. June 2016, the final blow. Vivendi owned 56% of Gameloft. Michel Guillemot, the man who built mobile gaming, was fired from his own company. He had won, but the real damage was just beginning. What followed was corporate genocide. Stéphane Roussel, Vivendi's chosen executioner, began the purge. Hyderabad, 250 employees, gone. Auckland, 160 developers, eliminated. Valencia, Budapest, Lviv, one by one, Gameloft's global empire was being dismantled. By 2024, the company that once employed thousands across 6 continents was a shadow. Toronto's studio, nearly empty. Lviv shuttered. The massacre was complete. This wasn't just downsizing. This was obliteration. Vivendi hadn't bought Gameloft to save it. They'd bought it to harvest its corpse. But like all great stories, this one has a twist. In the darkest hour, salvation came from an unexpected source. 2022, Disney Dreamlight Valley, a life simulation game that nobody saw coming. Early access launch, and suddenly Gameloft was back. 95% positive reviews on Steam. Q3 2022 revenue up 48%. The critics were stunned, the fans were ecstatic. Gameloft was alive. But this wasn't the old Gameloft. This was something new. PC gaming, console development. They'd learned from their mobile mistakes and evolved. Michel Guillemot's vision had been mobile gaming, but his successors found something bigger, a platform independence. So what's the lesson? What can we learn from Gameloft's rise, fall, and resurrection? Innovation isn't enough. Vision isn't enough. Success isn't enough. In the game of business, there are no permanent victories, only permanent vigilance. Michel Guillemot created mobile gaming. Vivendi destroyed his empire. But the developers, the dreamers, the creators, they survived. They evolved. They endured. Gameloft's story isn't over. It's just beginning again. And in an industry where yesterday's kings become tomorrow's forgotten, that might be the greatest victory of all.